Thank you once again for making Locked On Texas Tech and Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. I'm Jake Hatch. He's Chris Level. All right, Chris. So you and I talked during the summer, during a crossover. We talked about the chances of BYU and Texas Tech with all the money that's being splashed around by these two respective universities when it comes to NIL. And if they were the two biggest brands in the conference, well, if you want to go simply just by a record and what they've accomplished this season between the two, it kind of feels like the answer is yes. Do you have any different feeling on this?
I mean, I think I don't know if anybody set out to be this.
Yeah.
I think these two institutions probably saw opportunity, and not just in football. I think that needs to be made very clear. Athletically speaking, that there's an opportunity in this league for you to take advantage of the landscape, the rules, the foresight, however you want to phrase it, and you could really emerge because this league was searching for that. When you lose Oklahoma and Texas a few years ago, when you're trying to find, I don't know, the next brand of the blue blood or whatever we're looking for that moves the needle, people are like looking around the room going, we could be that. And I think these are two institutions that have a huge following. I think they're both well resourced. I think that you would agree that there's a lot of alignment with your administration, your athletic department, your boosters, and it makes it pretty smooth that everybody's kind of on the same page. Not every school has this. And I think you're kind of at a major advantage when you are aligned, and I think these two schools are, and I think that you're kind of starting to see it bear some fruit a little bit here. And I don't see any reason why this changes much. There may be others that feel they can crack the code and kind of start to knock on the door a little bit, but it's early, and nobody's done anything yet. But I just wonder if there's some staying power here. And again, I'm not talking just football here. We know that these two basketball teams are ranked basically in the top 10 in the preseason. You've got other sports that are ranked very high nationally on your campus. Texas Tech does as well. And I just think there's a chance here for you to kind of separate a little bit if you can keep at it and stay aligned, if you will, because you're going to stay well resourced.
Well, and that's the thing, that alignment is exactly what you're speaking to. I think the figureheads for both these universities are they're two billionaires out there. You have Cody Campbell down there at Texas Tech. Now, he has a little more of a prominent role because he's the president of the regents or whatever. He's the lead
chairman.
regent.
Yeah, he's the chairman of the board of regents. Yes.
Yes. So he's got a little more power just in terms of overall, because when you sit on that board of regents, you make decisions for the university, which are obviously a big thing. BYU's figurehead is Ryan Smith, who's the owner of the Utah Jazz and the Utah Mammoth out here. And he's a billionaire in his own right and a BYU alum who's been very vocal in his support of BYU. He's made it very clear that whatever he's capable of doing to help BYU in terms of resources, he's going to give it to him as far as he's capable. And that's what Cody Campbell's message has kind of been for Tech. And to your point, the university administration, the athletic directors, the coaches, you're right. That alignment doesn't exist in a lot of places. I'm telling you, across the country, not only just in the Big 12. And with that vacuum that was kind of created with the exit of Texas and Oklahoma from the Big 12, yeah, these two, and much like everybody else probably in the league, said, yeah, we're capable of taking the lead in this. But the nice part is these two seem to have at least stepped forward and really thrown money where their mouth is.
Yeah, and there may be alignment in a lot of places, right? But maybe you can't do anything about it.
Fair.
That's also worth pointing out. And I know you're mentioning one individual,
Sure.
at each place, but I think there's a lot of support, financially and otherwise, around these other individuals that are also going, let's do it, whatever you need, and that's. Again, this is the way that the rules are, and I know some people hate it and wish it was the way it used to be and all the things, but I think you're doing what you can right now with the landscape. And again, there's opportunity there, and I think you're trying to kick the door in and make some noise, because there's a realistic possibility, Jake, that it would need to play out a certain way, and I think we could probably come up with some theories on how you could get to that point. But I really don't know if I see a scenario to where you can get more than one team in the college football playoff
Mm-hmm.
unless it's these two. Like if you get more than one, I really think it points to these two teams just because of resume and the analytics and all the things that come with it. The analytics like Utah a lot, but it's hard for me to say that the CFP would put Utah in over one of these two teams unless there's some just bad loss or something and it makes it easy on them, because you've got head-to-head wins over these two, or both of these teams have a head-to-head win over Utah. So that is also something that could be very beneficial for the league. So I don't know what Brett Yormark is sitting there rooting for on how to get to that point, but I'm sure he's got on some whiteboard going, okay, if we do this and they maybe we have a rematch and you split it, and all the things. But that's sure the way it points to me. So we'll see.
I've talked to a couple of people out there in national media. I'm sure you have as well. The kind of prevailing consensus I have heard, Chris, is that if we have two 12-1 teams in the Big 12, so essentially if BYU and Tech, they play this weekend and they play again in Arlington, and essentially they split the games. Both teams are 12-1 come that final Sunday when the playoff field is set. They don't see any way that those two are left out. So that how it happens, that may be the best case scenario for the league to get the two representatives into the CFP, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But that's kind of the prevailing consensus. Like I said, it's only a handful of people I've talked to so far. That's kind of the prevailing thought on that matter. Now, before we go here, Chris, give me a key or two to the game, and do you have a prediction at this point?
Well, I'll tell you what I have, we have questions and what's the recipe on how this team will win the game and all those things. My question for Texas Tech will be how they handle the QB run game. This has given them some problems. I think Avery Johnson, who's a freak athlete, gave them some problems. They settled in, and really what you learned was that was all that Kansas State really had. Once they emptied their bag of tricks and some of the misdirection, there was just nothing they could hang their hat on. And, what Texas Tech has put together on defense is you've just got playmakers at all three levels, and it's pretty interesting to watch. And it's been much better than I would have thought. And the linebackers are the ones that make it go. They just are smart. They're solid. You had two forced fumbles by one, a scoop and score by another, and then an interception by the other one in Manhattan, Kansas, in a big game for Texas Tech. You hadn't beat Kansas State and Manhattan, Kansas since 2008, as we mentioned. And so this was a big deal, and your defense just really showed up. And I think it was, as I think one of the TV commentators, Robert Griffin, who was on the game, he basically was like, it's basically looks like Avery Johnson versus Texas Tech right now. They just didn't have a whole lot. So my question about BYU would be, can they, and I know they're averaging 36 points a game, but can they generate enough offense to score if Texas Tech were to have a typical offensive game? The question for Texas Tech would be, can you avoid the turnovers? It's been a problem, hit and miss on occasion. They even had two in Manhattan. But can you run the ball when you want to? I mentioned there's been some games where you've played really well and you've been able to do that, and some games really well. Other games, not so much. So which version of that O-line and the run game are you going to get? Because I know Jack Kelly and BYU, it's just a really solid, tough defense. That's what I appreciate about Coach Sitake's team, is that it's not a team, it's a program. Mm-hmm. It's a culture. I think that you kind of plug and play. The names change, but it seems the style, the effort, the clutch component to just figure it out and continue to win. They don't play this team, and so they're not really any good, or they just barely won, or it's all smoke and mirrors. 19-2 is not smoke and mirrors. I don't care who you are. The whole point of this deal is to try to get a result. They continue to do that, and so it's been super impressive to watch. I'm curious your kind of thoughts on either side of it about what it looks like, your concerns, your questions there as well.
Well, you brought up the linebacking core for Texas Tech. I'm telling you, these two linebacking cores are the best in the Big 12, I think, by a good margin, if not maybe tops in the country, because with Isaiah Glasker, Jack Kelly, Siale Esera on BYU side of things, for example, they're kind of the heart and soul of this BYU defense, which you talk about, Chris. Like, it's kind of in a way plug and play. But those three have just been absolutely remarkable. And they need to generate the plays to help BYU win this game, whether it's takeaways, punching a ball out, strip sack, interception. They've got to find a way to make these plays. And it's on the flip side for Tech as well. That linebacking core, you mentioned what they did against Kansas State. It kind of feels like whoever has the better day from their linebacking core, it could tilt this game in a way because they're just so impactful in terms of that. I said it earlier. I think that whoever runs the ball most effectively probably has an edge in this game, because I really do think controlling the tempo of this, it's absolutely critical. And in BYU's case, being able to quiet the crowd down there in Lubbock, that's absolutely critical to any chance anytime you're on the road.
If LJ Martin doesn't play or is limited, what then? Who steps in?
Okay.
What do they do? What would be the plan B? And take me through that dynamic.
They will run Bear Bachmeier a little bit more than maybe they would have liked to. They will absolutely use his legs. He's not a burner. He's not Avery, because you mentioned Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson's got flat out speed. Bear's pretty quick, but he's not straight line, like going to run like a 4.3 like a guy like Avery Johnson. But he's very effective in terms of setting up his blocks and running and picking up yardage when he needs to. So
power type run game, or like Colin Klein, something like that. Yeah.
Colin Klein is the perfect example for anybody who's a Texas Tech fan. If you remember Colin Klein, what he did at Kansas State, that QB power that he ran for years, it's kind of what Bear Bachmeier is. He's just a battering ram. He's 225 pounds, and he'll come downhill on you, and he's not afraid to lower his hat and take you on head to head. Now, in terms of making it up there, I think it'd be a combination of guys like Enoch Nawahine, Preston Rex, and just try and ham and egg what you can out of the run game. I don't think it'll be the same level to what BYU would like it to be without an LJ Martin if he is limited or unavailable. But they're just going to have to make do and try and just generate it some way. And like I said, that short passing attack, Carson Ryan at tight end, for example, that's going to be the extension of the run game, where maybe some swing passes and the like. The old Mike Leach, remember how he used the swing passes as an extension of the run game? I'm telling you, the roots of what Mike Leach built in Lubbock come from BYU's history. And Aaron Roderick, he's right from that same coaching tree, and he knows exactly what it can do to help loosen up a defense. So I'm not saying it's going to be effective, or effective is the wrong term. It's not going to be elite if they don't have LJ Martin in the rushing attack, but they're going to have to find a way to keep Texas Tech honest just by hamming and egging it.
Okay. I mean, it's, again, interesting chess matches. And it sets up for a fun Saturday morning / afternoon in Lubbock, Texas, with the Big 12 on a huge stage. And this is what both of these teams have been playing for.
Yeah, biggest one of the season to date for the Big 12 by far. All right, Chris, if Cougar fans, if they don't already know where you guys are at, where can they find more of you guys when it comes to Texas Tech?
Yeah, obviously Locked On Texas Tech. Me and Casey Cowan chop it up every single day. And my man Jay Catch is money as always. So you BYU fans out there, I know that your audience is massive. You don't need me to gas you up or anything like that. But it was a pleasure to be with you tonight, my man.
Absolutely. Well, Tech fans, if you want more BYU content throughout the week, check out Locked On Cougars wherever you get your podcasts. It's available on YouTube as well. So as always, Chris, it's a pleasure, my man. And of course, looking forward to this one. It should be an absolutely titanic clash down there in Lubbock.
Coach Hatch, appreciate it, man. Yes, we'll talk next time.
All right. Well, for Chris, I'm Jake. As always, thank you once again for making both Locked On Texas Tech and Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. And make sure you subscribe, rate, and review both of these fine shows, and come back tomorrow and be an everydayer on Locked On Cougars and Locked On Texas Tech.